Hey there, neighbors and naysayers. Clint Finney again. September the 2nd, 2023, as the sun goes down. Taking fences down, waiting to breed sows. I don't like to breed sows until after the sun goes down because the sunlight, direct UV rays messes with, we're artificially inseminating, messes with the artificially insemination process. So, find odd jobs to do while I'm waiting on the sun to go down. You can see today we're grazing the barnyard, or tonight and into tomorrow and the next day. So we got a rather large barnyard here at the farm, spread out, and it's just something you don't really want to mow when you got grazing livestock that'll do it. So once a month everybody comes through the yard. It's a pain because it has to be fenced in such a way that the cows and sheep can't get to things. Like, they're into our compost stockpile pile, but they're not into the compost building. Dad always brings home a couple odd bales of hay that got to be fenced out, or else they'll eat them and leave net wrap everywhere. The hog barn has to be fenced out because the cows will rub on the handle of the bulk bin and dump the bulk bin. It's a pain, but it's a lot less of a pain once a month than mowing it a couple times a year, and multiple times a year. So Jasper's trying to keep the cows away from his bowl. So that's just what we do, bring them across. But I guess I pulled out the phone today for another thought, and I'm not in the right place for this talk. Well, we talked about embracing the rough pasture, and this is rough. This is what I want it to be. A couple strands of ironweed, no big deal. Almost no horse nettle. A couple other broadleaf weeds, some plantain in there. Great. This is perfect. This is what I want it to look like. The compost pile grows poke and some velvet leaf and some cocklebur and some other things, but the sheep will eat them. It'll be clean tomorrow. But I built fence today for everybody for the week. Actually building for 2 weeks because this is my week with the boys, and it's hard to build on the weekend, and I have enough fence to do it this time. So I'm back in the section of the farm I call the Badlands, and I ought to go take a video back there, but it's rough, it's steep, it's slipped. It's rather covered in briars, blackberries, mawflower rose, wing stem right now this time of year. It's just a rough piece of ground, and it's somewhere that if it wasn't clear, we should just leave it and plant trees and be done with it, but it's clear, so we continue to manage it as pasture. But as I'm coming around today, I don't even know what struck this in my mind, but every couple of years I dabble in grazing pigs, and it always ends up in okay, this would be great, but I just don't have the time for this. And I've experimented and done some things, and unfortunately I didn't write a whole lot of it down, so I don't remember a whole lot of what I did learn. What I did learn was if you move them every day or every 7 days even, it seems like they don't dig too much. But once a group starts digging, they're going to dig every time, no matter how long they're in the field. So I guess I had always thought, well, wouldn't it be nice at some point when I had everybody together, this is back when I had the sheep and cows separate all the time, wouldn't it be nice to have them all together at some point and move? Well, as I looked at all those weeds and briars and things, and my mentor, Ken Clark, used to graze pigs, and someone asked him one time what the difference was between when he grazed pigs and then when he was grazing dairy cattle, and he said, well, I didn't have mawflower rose when I had pigs. Pigs absolutely hate mawflower rose, and they will root it out. And I got to thinking today, I'm embracing the rough pasture, but that mawflower rose, briars, blackberries, brambles of any kind in the pasture field is a pain to deal with. And some of the other weeds, hogs have a different palate than grazing animals. They tend to like that rough stuff compared to the sheep and cows. They'll eat clover, they like it too, and they'll eat grasses too, but they tend to like those kind of rough weeds. So I wonder if I'm not missing that piece, if that isn't the piece that I'm missing in all of this. Salatin talks about, we're mimicking nature, and that we've got a ruminant and we've got a bird, just like nature would have it. The nature would have a buffalo and then birds that go along to eat the fly larvae in the buffalo dung. and he runs cows or sheep, mostly cows, and then chickens behind to clean up that. And it's a way to manage the pasture and have different species on it all the time too. And I wonder if that's what we're missing. If we could just figure out a way to keep them from rooting. And my big problem with them rooting is that our pastures are already rough. They're already rough anyway. And to put pigs on here, if they dig in any appreciable amount, then they're even rougher. And I just don't like that. I'd like them to be smooth as they can. I mean, I can deal with a little bit of rough stuff, but I don't want them to be that much rougher. But I wonder, with all the fencing that we do to keep the dog, now we would have to figure out a way to make the dog food hog proof, which would be probably next to impossible. But I wonder if when we put all these guys together, if we wouldn't benefit from a couple bred sows or a couple finish hogs or a couple something, probably not finish hogs. The hard part then would be feeding the sows because the sheep would get into their feed, so we'd have to have some other way to do that. But those are things that I love to think about, and how could we make that work. We could figure out a way. It would be kind of, now I know we learned that when we graze pigs, we tried to graze them behind the sheep one time, and what we found out was when we fed the hogs, the sheep all busted through the fence to get to the hog feed. So I don't remember that day whether they were out of mineral and that's why, or that was early on when they had come from Monty and they were used to getting corn out of a bucket as a catch feed, and so they knew what it was. I don't know that this group would know what it is. Now they're so far removed from it. So the problem is once they found out what it is, then they'd want it all the time. So we have to figure out a way to feed them. Or would we? Would they get enough, especially bred sows, if we took the fattest of the bred sows and put them out on pasture, and even if we only just put them for a month, brought them back in, fed them up, or brought them in here the month before they're getting ready to farrow, as long as we didn't have any Jimson weed in the field, we might be on to something. I don't have time to make this work right now. I just have to be honest with myself. I don't have time to do what I do. So it's something that I have to record and think about for next year or the years following when I have more time. But I just wonder if maybe my weediness, and like I said, this doesn't bother me. It's the wing stem, the briars, the brambles, all that stuff that bothers me over in those other fields. If that is not what we're missing. And, hogs will eat fresh cow manure. So on top of that, the sheep problem could be solved by the hogs could be behind them, as long as we figured out a way to keep the sheep from coming through the fence to eat the hog feed, and that would solve the dog food problem. We just have to have a couple extra reels so that we could do all that. Interesting thoughts, just things that I think about when I've got all day to myself riding around building fences. Just wanted to get it down and maybe think about it a little more in the future. With that, I'll say, see you next time.